Skinamarink is a very, very interesting independent film that has recently premiered on streaming on Shudder. I actually did not know about this movie until you actually told me about it, Des. I was not aware that this was
Hmm.
coming, but this movie is, by all accounts, experimental, really is the best word for it. It was made on a budget of $15,000, very, very,
Crazy.
very minimal budget. It was shot in 1 week. Kyle Edward Ball has had a little bit of a cinematic past. This is mostly inspired by a series of shorts that he's responsible for on his YouTube channel called Bite Size Nightmares. And so this has become a feature length version sort of what he's already established with those YouTube shorts that he's been working on for a number of years. And as I mentioned, this movie did have a brief theatrical rollout at the top of the year before it was widely made available on the streaming service Shudder. And it's essentially about two kids who wake up in the middle of the night. They find that their dad is nowhere to be found inside their home, and they also see that all the windows are missing and all the doors are gone. And it's a really, really terrible and terrifying experience for them. And it's very, very strange, but the way it's shot is in a very old school analog nature. It's a
Hmm.
very, very different film, I think, compared to what many people have seen. If you want to get a sense of the style, I would recommend checking out Bite Size Nightmares because those are shorter versions kind of what you've seen in this blown out version here. But this is a movie we both finally got a chance to check out on streaming on Shutter. So with all of that out the way, I'll pass it over to you, man. What did you think about Skinamarink?
Man, I have never seen, I think, a movie so spread out across people who watch movies critically, man. It is I've never seen it this spread out. Usually there's like some kind of consensus somewhere. Sometimes you hate it, you love it kind of consensus. Sometimes it's everyone's in the middle. Sometimes everyone loves it. Sometimes everyone hates it. I have never seen so many. I love it. I hate it. Oh, it's okay. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen ever. It is all over the place. And I am a person who currently and right now just exists in the middle. Because I have no idea what I watched. I think I need to go back and watch it again. It's very much one of those because it's so experimental, because it's so patient and slow, and you kind of got to pay attention to what's happening and kind of have to listen and follow the story differently than some of any of the other more popular horror films that you've seen. It's hard for me to wrap my head around currently, and so I think that's why I fall in the middle. I feel like I need to watch it again. But I will say there are parts of the film that do feel, I don't know if hard to watch is the word, but it can get sleepy at moments because you're just waiting on something to happen or you are waiting on something to go down. And so I love the experimental nature of it though. Sometimes there's like a jump scare in it and you don't even really know why. You just jump. Like it does a very good job of setting an atmosphere where you feel like you should be afraid of what's happening. I will give it that for sure. But man, this is really a movie that absolutely, most definitely won't be for everybody. In fact, I will even go an extra mile to say this is really for the horror buffs. Because I really do think a casual horror film watcher won't, I think, appreciate or understand what they're watching on the screen. Shoot, even me as somebody who will, I would say I'm a horror buff, in some ways, and me being like, man, I don't even know what I just seen, kind of type thing. And so I think it's definitely one of those far and in between movies that is going to take is again either I think you're going to like it or I think a lot of people are going to hate it because in some ways that's how it's being as even there is a mixed bag across the board. So yeah, something I still have to figure out. But again, I love the experimentation. I love the atmosphere it sets in to be honest, it's probably one of the better found footage movies we've seen in a couple years. I'm trying to think what we've gotten recently, but this is the one that for sure I can say is the most memorable, and I'll give it that for now.
So I will echo and start by saying exactly what you've already said, that this movie is not for everybody. It truly is not. And
Mm-hmm.
mostly I attribute that fact to this reasoning. This movie has no actual narrative. There really is no story. And I think that that's the case because for me, in my viewing experience, the way that I perceive this movie is that a
Mm-hmm.
storyline is not the point. It truly is about the experience. And so I wanted to make sure that I curated the perfect watching experience for myself that I thought was going to be the best possible outcome for this particular movie. And I didn't think that seeing it in the movies at a theater was going to create that. I actually thought that let's just watch this at home. Let's wait till it gets on streaming. And so I watched this on a Friday night at
Yep.
1 a.m.
Yep.
All the lights out, completely dark, by myself, to just experience to let it wash over me. And I do think that that is the optimal viewing experience, because I gotta say, I think I might love this movie. I think I really, really might love it because of how strange and different and unexpected it really was for me, and how much it low-key bothered me. It really, really affected me.
Yeah.
And I think that what Kyle Edward Ball set out to do with this movie is to create this really primal viewing experience that plays on the anxiety and the fears that children experience, that we experience throughout childhood. And that's the fear of abandonment. That's the fear of the unknown, not knowing what's around the corner, not knowing what that sound was that you might have heard across the room, which I still go through that. I live alone, and I still, like, I'll hear some weird shit and I'm like, yo, what was that?
All the time.
What's going on? Like, you get really jumpy when stuff like that goes down, because when you watch so many of these movies, it just becomes a part of your DNA at a certain point.
Yeah.
And when you watch this film and you watch these two kids and this experience of their father being gone, nowhere to be found, and you also don't really know what's going on with their mother, that's left kind of to the unknown as well. There's just this sense of utter helplessness. And I think if you're a parent, if you were to watch this might be the worst thing ever to watch, because you would feel so terrible for what the kids go through. They go through such dire shit, such terrible stuff throughout this movie. I think it would be so upsetting to watch this as a parent. And by the end of it, what I found is that the story doesn't have the answers for you. It does not give you a solid, concrete reason as to what's happening and why it's happening. I think it's all left up to interpretation. And I typically love a lot of movies that go that route. I love ambiguous, maybe more opaque endings sometimes, and you just kind of have to make sense of it for yourself. The less answers for me in many of my viewing experiences, especially in the horror genre, kind of the better. And I think that some people, they might perceive watching, this movie is like a nightmare playing out in real time. Like, we might be just experiencing what somebody would go through in their own nightmares. Others might speculate that this is like an alternate reality, some separate supernatural dimension is somewhere we might be in taking place within the story. And I think regardless of what your perception is, it's evident that something is wrong, and something very sinister and something very, very just upsetting is happening all throughout this house. And it really fucking bothered me. There were just many points in time where I was just like, yo, this is not okay, because everything that happens in this movie is just completely implausible. It cannot be explained. And then the fact that the director goes the extra mile to not explain it, it's like, yo, this is crazy. I just don't know what I'm watching. So again, this movie's not for everybody, but for me, because of how much it made me feel, how much emotion it drew out of me, it really, really worked. And those jump scares, some might call them cheap because of the way that the film is framed, because there is so much silence. There is a lot that's drawn out. There's even repeated shots. Like, there are shots that are used over and over again. And I will say that's a criticism that I have. I think you could lose like 10 minutes, if you take out some of the repeated shots. But because there's so much silence for such a long time, when jump scares are utilized, they worked for me, because I just didn't see it coming, and they're very, very frightening. And so, I think that overall, this is a movie that you just kind of have to experience and make your own judgment call based off of that, because you'll go into it just not really knowing what's happening. As you say, you just don't really know what you witness. Like, this is a movie where you don't even see anybody's face. You don't see none of the main characters' faces. You don't see the children's faces.
Just
and when
legs.
you do see it, just legs and torsos, and the camera is placed on the floor. You're looking up at the ceiling. It's at Dutch angles. It looked like somebody dropped something on the floor, and you just so happen to be in this room watching this unfold. And there's just so much inexplicable stuff. And so I think that you just kind of have to just, allow yourself to experience it for what it is, and then make your own judgment call based off of that. But I think that for me, it really, really worked. It was really impactful. And I probably attribute that to the fact that it is so experimental, and also just the fact that I watched it at the worst time possible. I watched it when the director probably envisioned, like, yeah, you want to get the shit scared out of you? Yeah, watch it at like midnight or 1 a.m. on a Friday or Saturday by yourself and then see what
Hmm.
happens. And so it worked for me. I really liked it. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again just based off of everything I said now, for
Yeah.
better and for worse. But if you do check it out, I would love to hear what people's opinions on it are. Again, it's currently streaming right now on Shudder. So definitely hit us up and let us know what you think about it if you check out Skinamarink. But those are our thoughts. Again, if you've checked out this movie, give us a shout. Let us know what you think about it.